We're good. Okay, so while we're here in my jiu-jitsu gym, welcome to Hong Kong. Welcome to my jiu-jitsu gym.
Thank you. It's a great jiu-jitsu gym.
I'm going to take you around to Tsimsha. We have a park just over there where we're going to fly a drone. Well, you've just spent some time here in Hong Kong. You went to a Bitcoin conference, Bitcoin Asia. Is that right?
That's what I was here for.
What's the story? What's the story?
The story behind Bitcoin Asia?
Well, you're coming out to Hong Kong specifically. Do you have a speaking slot or anything like that? Or?
Yeah. Bitcoin Magazine invited me out to come be on a panel about BitVM with Eric Wall and Shinobi from Bitcoin Magazine.
Oh yeah.
So we did that, and then while I was here, I was also invited to speak at 2 other events.
Oh yeah.
One of them was not a panel, but a day-long discussion about virtual machines, and the other was a day-long discussion about state channels. So that's what we did.
Okay,
that's what I did.
Now, how involved are you with BitVM? Let's go this way. I'm going to cross the road and go that way. How involved are you with BitVM?
It depends on what people want me to do. Originally, my involvement with BitVM was that I was in a Telegram channel with Robin Linus and a couple of other people, where all of us were trying to come up with. It was called Hack a Zero Knowledge Prover into Bitcoin Script. We were trying to figure out a way to do zero knowledge proofs. Over a course of about a year and a half or so, we came up with various ideas, some of which are on my GitHub, trying to make it work. And eventually, Robin came up with BitVM, which actually seems to do what we want. So he shared that with us. I came up with a proof of concept in software that shows it works. Yeah. He wrote a white paper outlining the basic principles. And ever since then, most of my role has been to teach people how to do it. I think that there's only a few people who've actually got stuff to run in the BitVM kind of paradigm. Maybe, well, for a while it was only like 7 people. I did a workshop where I showed people how to make tic-tac-toe in BitVM, and about 40 people have taken that workshop and then gotten it to run. So yeah, kind of an educational role for me, teaching people how it works and kind of inspiring them to maybe build something on top of it.
Good. Can you break apart the BitVM, the fundamentals of how it works? What is BitVM?
Yes, that's 2 questions. What is it and how it works? I'll do what is it first. BitVM is a type of virtual computer, and I like to use the example of VirtualBox. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but if you're a Linux user, sometimes you want to use a program that's not available on Linux. Maybe it's Photoshop, or maybe it's, I don't know, Roller Coaster Tycoon. And in order to get these things to run, one of the things you can do is you can tell your Linux device to pretend to be a Windows device or pretend to be a Mac. And we call that a virtual machine. VirtualBox is a popular software for it. It's when one computer pretends to be another one. So BitVM is one of those. It's a virtual computer, and just like a real computer, you can run programs in it. But what's neat about it is that these programs are encoded in a way that Bitcoin can understand them. So you can have a program that you run, like let's say it was Roller Coaster Tycoon, where only if you get, I actually haven't played the game, but I think it's like if you get a certain number of people coming to your theme park, yes, then you can spend the money in this Bitcoin address. Okay. But if you don't, get to that level of the game or whatever, then it won't let you. And it's kind of neat because like you can run any program in this virtual machine, and it's done in a way that you can lock up some Bitcoin, so that only if you run the program correctly do you get to spend it.
You've obviously heard of a concept called NAND to Tetris, is that right?
Yes, I have.
And how similar, how many similarities are there between NAND to Tetris and BitVM?
In the initial stages, it was quite similar. In that, in Robin Linus's white paper and in my proof of concept, we did everything in very straight up in logic gates. So I built the first virtual computer for BitVM completely out of logic gates, just like you're talking about. That's what a NAND is one of the fundamental types of logic gates for doing binary operations on data. And yeah, it was very similar. I played the game NAND to Tetris to try and like build up my understanding of how this stuff worked, because I'd never built a computer before.
It's fantastic.
It was.
It's so much fun when you approach the game, when you approach elements of computing from that perspective.
Yes. Now it's not so that the initial version of my like implementation of BitVM is very much an example of NAND to Tetris, where but it's NAND to a full computer.
However, so you started off with the BitScript, Bitcoin script, using the not and the and to make an and. Is that right?
Yeah, Bitcoin script has a number of functions for dealing with binary data, and among them are and, or, and not. Those are three of the fundamental logic gates. Sometimes not is called invert, where if you have a 0, you flip it to a 1, and if you have a 1, you flip it to a 0.
Or negate.
Or sometimes it's called negate. But anyway, yeah, when you combine those, it's sort of like a periodic table. You get other logic gates, and if you combine and with not, you get NAND, and that one is what NAND to Tetris is all about. It shows you how to use NAND gates to create all of the other logic gates and then create the game of Tetris. So that's kind of what I did in my initial version. Now that's not exactly what BitVM is anymore. As anyone who's ever made a computer has figured out, doing everything
super inefficient.
Well, yes, it is inefficient, and it's also very hard. So what they usually do is they abstract. They make something that works on logic gates, and then they make something that's kind of like a higher level programming environment based on that. And so that's kind of where BitVM is at now. We don't use logic gates much for the basic stuff. We've built other stuff on top of it.
So okay, so have you reached the there's the hardware software boundary, which is like machine code. Have you reached the equivalent of this machine code? You have certain sets of operation opcodes. Or what level are you at now within this virtual machine?
Well, so important to point out that I'm not on Robin's team. Robin has a team of people at his company that he's hired to work on making BitVM, libraries and stuff.
Okay.
And I'm not part of that team.
Okay.
So the stuff that I've done on BitVM has been completely independent of what he's done.
Oh, okay.
And we're at different stages. So with my, logic gates only thing, I did get it to a point where it had support for the assembly programming language. And only some of the functions in it. Assembly has a bunch of, opcodes, they call them. And I implemented support for 9 of them, as well as for variables and another thing. I forget what the other thing was. So that's where mine is, and I haven't touched it ever since. Okay. Other than to build games and stuff on top of it.
So Linus his implementation is far exceeded. Let's go this way. It sounds quite noisy that way.
In many ways, yes. He is building a RISC-V computer.
Aha.
And
so he's going to use the instruction set of RISC-V.
Yes.
So therefore you can utilize the existing tool chains, which would then target the RISC-V instruction set.
However, the problem is that he's not done. His is, in a sense, further along than mine is, in that his has support for most of the instruction set that's in the RISC-V chip. Okay. But on the other hand, his doesn't work. He's not in a state where he's creating valid Bitcoin transactions. So mine is much simpler and only supports 9 different functions, but mine works. Like you can run it on Bitcoin right now.
So you're obviously familiar. Let's back around. Okay. This is today's Sunday, and what's happened is that a lot of the domestic helpers they have Sundays off.
Okay.
So they go find a nice little corner in the park and have a tea and sing and dance.
Well, that's exactly what I hoped they would do.
Yes. So we might have some troubles finding a quiet little spot maybe. Okay, you're familiar with Forth and other simple languages which have very simple instructions.
I've never programmed in Forth,
okay.
But I've programmed enough in Bitcoin script, which is based on Forth, that I suppose it would be very familiar to me if I picked it up.
It would be very familiar, and it's quite similar to Forth, exactly. That's exactly correct. Okay, so, but okay, you say your implementation is dead simple. You've already got stuff working on it.
Yep.
Why is it that? Have you seen uptake of your implementation? People are using it?
No, mine is in Robin's white paper. He talks about how, I'm going to build a computer out of logic gates as an example. But he says in there, this would be very inefficient to do. You should never do this in real life. And I went ahead and did it in real life. So anyone who's using mine, they're only using it to get an education on it, to understand how this stuff works, to understand the paradigm.
Okay, I see. Okay.
That's why I'm making games and stuff. It's educational.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what's happening is Linus's implementation is essentially it's a compiler from RISC-V to Bitcoin script.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas yours is actually it's implemented in Bitcoin script. Using the concept of the NAND to Tetris encapsulation and interfaces.
Exactly.
Implementation and interfaces. Yours is turtles all the way down.
Well, mine is much harder to deal with,
but way more fun.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think it's great. I had so much fun making it and learning how, doing the NAND to Tetris stuff and learning how logic gates work.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
But it's super expensive to use.
Oh, yeah, I should imagine, yeah.
Especially in terms of bandwidth. Like every bit of information, you have to send like something like 100 bytes of data.
Oh.
And it gets into, if you wanted to do anything serious on it, you would be sending petabytes of data back and forth between you and your counterparty. So
okay.
Only for education, not for real world usage.
Yes. Okay. Whereas so Linus's approach is you're going to compile. The output will be a Bitcoin script, and
one of the differences with Linus's approach is that he realized that you don't need to do everything in logic gates because Bitcoin already does a lot of this stuff for us.
Yes.
The major components of a CPU, as I learned by making one, are the memory and the arithmetic and logic unit by which you modify memory.
Yes.
And that's basically it. Those are the two functions.
Yes.
You don't need logic gates for either of those because Bitcoin script already has the mathematical functions with which you can simulate an ALU.
Let's sit over here.
It has add, subtract.
Yes.
That's really all you need to do an ALU.
Yeah.
And the other thing it has is it has state, or I think it has a stack machine, where you can put 4 bytes of data into every element of the stack, and there are 999 of them available. So you've got basically as much memory as you need for any application.
Right.
So he is not trying to build a computer out of NAND gates. Yes. He's like, we've already got a computer in Bitcoin script, in its stack machine.
Yes.
We'll just build applications inside of there.
And then his compiler will just be like super efficient at.
Hopefully.
Yeah. At generating as efficient Bitcoin script as possible.
Right. And you can always promise the world when it doesn't exist yet, but it doesn't exist yet is the thing. So we don't know.
How far away are we from an implementation now?
We were so close. After he made the BitVM white paper, he immediately began working on what we now call BitVM 1. Yes. Which was like a library that he was writing for, and he and his team were writing this library for doing all this stuff.
Yes.
And he was like right at the edge. He was within days of publishing this software library, and he abandoned it because he came up with an idea, BitVM 2.
I have a sweat rag. It's clean, it's fresh. Would you like it?
Not right now.
All right, I'll put that over there.
It'll wipe off all of my.
Oh yeah, oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Just dab. Keep going. Okay. Yeah.
So he came up with an idea, BitVM 2, which he thinks is way better than BitVM 1, and he abandoned all work on it, and he abandoned his software library days before publishing. And I was so upset with him. I was like, finish it and publish it, and then work on BitVM 2, because then we'll have something, But he wouldn't. So now I have no more faith in Robin. Hey, Robin, if you're listening, I'm ashamed. Well, I mean, I'm not ashamed. I'm sad. Because now I think what's going to happen is he's going to get close to publishing BitVM 2, and then he's going to be like, oh, I came up with another new idea, BitVM 3, and then he's going to abandon all work on BitVM 2, and it's just never ending.
That's a risky one. It's like the eternal academic. That's sort of like, keep seeking perfection, and perfection is never there. That's a dangerous.
She's a cruel mistress.
She's a very cruel mistress indeed. Yeah. Okay. Then if you're also doing community outreach, community education, why don't you just push something? Yeah, you mentioned because it's too expensive.
Mine is very expensive, and I'm not a good enough coder to write a good one. I can only do a bad one, and then hopefully inspire people with the idea of, now I understand how it works. Maybe they'll make something.
Improve it. Could you? And has Linus published the BitVM 2, or was it all under? Could you actually see the code?
I saw the code for BitVM 1.
But was it published open?
It was on his GitHub, so yes, it was published and open.
So why not just take that and
finish it?
Yeah.
I would love it if someone did that. I'm not smart enough.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah, then I don't know if BitVM. I assume BitVM 2 is also open, but I lost interest in it, and so I'm not not following along with the development of it.
Got it. Okay, got it.
It was very upsetting, Robin. It was very upsetting. If you're watching this.
What, like nightmares at night?
I mean, no, I didn't have any nightmares, but I was just like, he was on the cusp of greatness, and then it was just, abandonment. Yeah, okay. But what do you do with that? I was like, me and other people were waiting on him to publish this thing so we could build stuff on top of it. I was ready to build Roller Coaster Tycoon, man.
That never came.
No, I can't. Got to wait even longer, and who knows how long. So.
Yeah. Well, okay then. So, but what sort of, like, for example, does BitVM enable things like drive chains?
Like is a good word. Yeah, I think it enables things like drive chains. There are three things that I think you can do with BitVM. Yeah. One of them is games, and this is underestimated because people are like, games aren't serious. I think they're really important.
I agree.
People like games. I like to increase people's enjoyment of their life, and if they like games, that's great. But if you do games on Bitcoin right now, like let's say you want to do poker, you've got to find someone to hold your money and everyone else's money who's playing.
Yes.
Play the game of poker, and then have that guy distribute the funds to whoever won.
Yeah.
And it kind of works, except it's illegal, and the people who are running these servers get arrested. So it doesn't really work in that context. If we could do it all, if we could program the game of poker into BitVM, then you could have people play this stuff and enjoy their lives more because there's no chance of anyone getting arrested, which would be great. So I want that. I want games. Another thing I want that I think BitVM can do is covenants. You can simulate covenants with it. And covenants in Bitcoin are a way of restricting where money can be spent, so that once it goes into address A, there's a whitelist. It has to go into addresses B, C, and D from there. Right. And there's a lot of really useful things you can do with that, including vaults are a common example of things you can do with it. You can make drive chains with covenants. That's something you can simulate with BitVM because of a convoluted thing we can talk about afterwards. The third thing you can do is you can improve the way we do sidechains today. So there are sidechains in Bitcoin exist. Liquid is an example. Rootstock is an example. A couple of scams are sidechains as well, like Stacks. And these things work mostly by having a federation, typically, who you give your money to. A federation is like a group of 15 people, and 11 of them have to vote on what to do with the money. You give your money to this group of people. You use it on the sidechain. They give you a corresponding amount of sidechain bitcoins, and when you're done with it, you ask them to please give you your money back, or however much you have left. Maybe you've made some, maybe you've lost some, but you're like, okay, I'm done using it. Give me my money back. And then they vote. They vote and okay, yeah, let's give him his money. The drawback is what if they vote no, right? What if they just steal your money and leave with it? Yeah. So with BitVM, you can reduce the trust assumptions of a sidechain down from like 11 out of 15, which is what Liquid uses. Robin came up with a way to reduce it all the way to as long as one person out of the 15 is honest, then you're good. And I came up with an alternative model that reduces it down to 0. Even if none of them are honest, you can still get your money back. But my model is very expensive. So there's these 3 things you can do with BitVM, or at least that I've thought of: games, covenants, including drive chains, and side chains, which are also kind of like drive chains, or better side chains. We already have side chains. But yeah, those are the things that I want to make with it, or I want to see done with it. Does that help? Do you want to dive any further into any of those examples?
No, we don't. I'd like to pull out a bit. I'd like to pull out a bit, and what other projects are you involved in?
Oh boy, it's lots and lots of projects. I really love making stuff on Bitcoin's L1.
Let's go back. Let's go back a few years. How did you get involved in technology? What was the impetus to understand more about computers and whatnot? Did you have like a hackerspace in the area? Was it?
Depends on when you're talking about. I've always been interested in computers and stuff since I was a kid.
Okay. Was it your dad who sort of?
My dad had a computer. He had an early MS-DOS. I think it was like Windows 3 computer, and it had MS-DOS included. Yeah. I remember actually one early memory. He had this game on the MS-DOS computer called Balloons. Yeah. And I always remember having to have my sister type in balloons for me because I didn't know how to spell it. But eventually I watched her fingers doing it, and I memorized how to spell balloons on the computer. And this is before I knew how to write. So it's like writing commands on the computer, telling it to open up balloons. But yeah, I'd always been interested in computers. Before even high school, I was making websites for people and helping them. I was uploading stuff to servers with FileZilla and managing people's websites. And then in the year 2017, I decided I was going to learn to program. So I taught myself using online tutorials like w3schools.com. Teaches you how to do web development for free. And in 2018, I decided to apply that to Bitcoin and started making Bitcoin applications. So that's, we say, was there a hackerspace? And I suppose there were, but I wasn't involved in any of them, not during those years.
Okay.
In 2021, I moved to Austin, Texas, where Pleb Lab was starting up. I'm wearing a shirt for Pleb Lab.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, represent. And they have a hackerspace. So I applied, shared with them some of the projects I was working on at the time. They thought they were cool and wanted to help me out. So I came to there, and it was part of the first cohort out of Pleb Lab.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's once I was there, I've had a supportive Bitcoin community to assist me with making stuff, and that's been great.
Right. Okay. Are you more into the freedom, furthering the liberty? Do you see Bitcoin as a liberty furthering endeavor to the population? What's your primary interest in Bitcoin? Is it rooted in furthering the liberty of people, or what other reasons might you be interested in Bitcoin?
My reason for getting into Bitcoin early on was that I was upset with the way that our government was managing our money supply, and particularly our debt. Back in the year 2010, I thought it was very concerning that our government had built up so much debt in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis that there were politicians who were like, let's just not repay it. And there were other politicians who were like, in fact, let's keep increasing it. And I just thought, these morons who are in charge of the money are screwing everything up. And I wondered if there was a way that the internet could solve this, because it had solved a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. So in 2010, I'd never heard of Bitcoin. I started Googling internet money, virtual currency, stuff like that. And Bitcoin came up in my search results. Right. So I started reading about it, and I was like, this is a cool idea. You can take money out of the hands of government and make it a program that anyone can run. So I thought that was a great idea. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's been my primary interest, is in removing the print button from the control of Congress, and as well removing them from just being in charge of what happens with money.
Right. Okay. So it's the injustices that are happening. For example, you go try print some money yourself, and then you're the bad guy, right? It's just, somebody else, not the right people are printing the money in their eyes, and you're done for.
Well,
off to prison with you.
I mean, that is an injustice, but it's an injustice in itself that money can be printed. That in itself is a problem to be solved, in my opinion.
Bitcoin is also essentially printed, but it's printed in a way that's not essentially controlled by a few actors.
Yeah, you do it once. Satoshi printed all 21 million Bitcoins from my perspective.
Okay.
He buried them in code, and we're out unlocking them.
Yeah.
And you have to have some money, but I think it's great that Bitcoin takes away the ability to create more of it.
Do you see there's a relatively recent movement by Wall Street to come in onto Bitcoin? Do you see this as, I don't know, maybe an attack vector, or rather a way that's rather dangerous? Because I know that I think your Biden administration is now, am I correct in saying that they were passing laws or something to stop self-custody? Was this the case? Or because
I'm trying to remember. There's been a lot of laws coming out, and I don't pay a lot of attention to them.
Okay. Well, what I'm worried about is the whole Sailor phenomenon, where it seems like NGU, number go up, is more important than the cypherpunk roots of the system, having Bitcoin in a position whereby
I don't think there was a law that came out or was proposed that said you're not allowed to have Bitcoin. Self-custody. I think there was something that said I don't think it was passed, but it was something that said if a financial institution receives Bitcoin from an unhosted wallet, which is like a self-custodial wallet, then there was extra reporting requirements that they were supposed to do, or something like that. I believe that was the state of the game, but it's all nonsense.
Oh yeah. Well, one thing that's sort of concerning me at the moment is this Sailor phenomenon, which is, it's essentially Wall Street that's coming in. And if Bitcoin is unable to scale to the point where we're able to make transactions directly with each other, en masse, essentially around the world, then it's going to be fractionalized. It's going to be fractional money. You see what I mean? Like the existing system as at the moment, just as gold, well, supposedly is the major asset that people print money against. The same, you could just swap out gold for that and then have your US dollars backed by Bitcoin. In other words, the Bitcoin standard is bullshit. It's an attack vector. Do you agree with that? Do you have any opinions on that?
You inspire some thoughts in me that I'm not sure are entirely in the same line, but let me share my thoughts on it. Yes. I want Bitcoin to scale so that everybody can use it as well. And I also don't think that it's necessary to do that. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that Satoshi nailed it in the white paper. He said, he was talking about the existing financial system in the first paragraph, and he says the entire financial system is based on trust, and the history of our monetary system is filled with breaches of that trust. Mm-hmm. He gives the example of every time you make a payment today, almost every time, you're using a credit card or a debit card, and it goes through the hands of trusted financial intermediaries, who have been known to censor people, stop transactions, block them, deplatform folks.
Or coin clip going back 1,000 years.
Yes. And there's a funky little line in the middle of that paragraph that I think is pretty critical. He says, the system works well enough for most transactions. Mm-hmm. And I think he's absolutely right. I'll tell you, as somebody who lives on Bitcoin, most of the way I live on it is by loading up a Visa debit card and then spending it at places, because Visa works really well for most transactions. Most of the time, if I'm going to buy some food, they're not trying to censor me. They're not trying to stop me from doing whatever it is. It's only when I do particularly really controversial things, like donating to a political campaign that they don't agree with, that they start to censor people. And that's when I think you need Bitcoin. It's like, if you're just buying food or whatever, that you don't need Bitcoin for that, because they're not trying to stop you from doing that. At least not right now. But it's for when they get tyrannical and authoritarian that we need an alternative. And so that's really what I want. What I think Bitcoin is really great at. And yeah, I hope that. What are your thoughts? Those are some of my thoughts.
Some of my thoughts. Well, okay, yeah. riffing.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
I've got more.
Yes, go for it.
If we're currently at a position where Bitcoin works really well in the face of censorship by governments, then what I really like about stuff like the Lightning Network is that they've expanded that. They've said, actually, Bitcoin doesn't only just work well there, but it can actually compete with Visa. We can have a similar, experience as you get when you're using Visa in terms of transaction speed and transaction cost, but based it on Bitcoin. And then it's like, holy cow, Bitcoin's even more than I thought it was. It's not just a response to authoritarianism. It can actually be a foundation for replacing the entire monetary system. And so I really want to keep furthering that and helping improve it. I don't think we're there. I think that having used the Lightning Network for 5 years now, it's not as good, but it's in the ballpark. Like we're getting there, and so with some more improvements to it, I think we could not just have Bitcoin as something you can use if you're being censored, but also something you can use day to day.
Mm-hmm. So you think that Lightning is not dead in the water?
Correct. I don't think it's dead in the water. Okay. I think it sucks, but I think it can be improved.
Why does it suck?
Well, for four main reasons. One of them is that in order to receive money on the Lightning Network, you have to be online. The way that it's designed, you have the two parties, if they want to transact with one another, they both have to co-sign every transaction that takes place because it's using multisig, and it sucks if you have like a phone or something and you're trying to receive money. Your phone's probably not online a lot, most of the time. Most of the time, it's sitting in your pocket, and people can't send you any money. So Lightning works better if you're like in person. You can bring it out and you can be like, okay, send me money now. But a lot of times it's just not feasible, especially like for donations and stuff. So that's one reason why it sucks. A second reason is this thing called the inbound liquidity problem, where if I want to send somebody money over Lightning, I can't just do it. They have to have already set up a channel. They have to have created inbound capacity, which means they have to like create room for themselves to receive money. Inbound capacity costs money, so in order to receive money on Lightning, you have to pay money to receive money, which is weird. That's a problem. Third is privacy. The Lightning Network is better than the base layer for privacy because you're not revealing everything on there, but it's got severe privacy problems, especially if you're receiving the money, where you're telling the sender exactly where to send it. You're giving them your pub key, your IP address. Usually you're giving like a route hint, which is who you're connected to on the network. You're leaking all of this data. And if you do something like put it in your Twitter profile so people can send you donations, it's even worse. It's like now everyone on Twitter knows where all of that information about you. So yeah, there was a fourth one, but I forget what it is. 3 is good. We fix those problems first.
Right. Okay. So I mean, the always online thing automatically means that people are going to defer this workload onto a centralized third party. So you're always going to have these. What's it, Voltage? I think Voltage is the company's called Voltage.
That is a big company in the United States that offers this service.
So, like, trusted third parties are security holes, right? Mm-hmm. So, not only do we have the leaking of information as your point number 3, but also you're deferring the services to somebody else. At what point do we say, okay, well, let's just defer our services to the banks?
Well, you say always. You said the way the Lightning works, you always have to do this. You don't actually always have to do it because there are proposed specifications, improvement proposals for Lightning, like the asynchronous payment spec, which I've tried to do some work on. Currently have some projects in the works that take advantage of this, where you actually don't have to have the recipient be online. He doesn't have to co-sign every transaction in order for it to go through. And so advancing stuff like that, I think can help improve that primary problem, and then get rid of the need to rely on always on service providers.
Okay. All right.
Also, another thing that I think is really neat about Lightning, even in its current mode of operation, where most people are relying on centralized service providers, the reliance there is not the same kind as you have with your relationship with your bank, because your bank holds your money. And nodes like Voltage don't hold your money. Your money's not on Voltage. It's just that you're connected to them kind of like an internet service provider where they're forwarding traffic to you. And that's still not great because they can just shut off service to you, but at least you didn't lose any money. You might have to go find someone else to do that for you, But it's not, if your bank deplatforms you, your money's gone. And if Voltage deplatforms you, you kept your money. That's a big improvement in the world of privacy, or in the world of freedom and self-sovereignty.
Right. So in a world where we're always delegating to third parties, trusted third parties for a majority of stuff, but we have the tools to be able to pull things back when we don't trust them. For example, if we don't trust a bank, we can say, okay, I pull my money from the bank, I'm going to use the Bitcoin layer 1 chain to make these transactions instead. Do you think that's enough to keep everybody honest? And to move forward into a world whereby politicians actually have to get up off their asses and do something for a living?
I don't know. I suppose, since I don't know, I have to answer no. I don't think it is enough, but I'd like to see. I'd like to find out. Let's start with that. Get everybody to hold their own money and see if that changes anything. If it doesn't, then we can work on the next thing.
Yeah. All right. You're also involved in the Nostr community, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's your role?
It's mostly the same as I do in Bitcoin. I come up with ideas for stuff that I think is cool, and then I make it and show people, look what I made. I do a lot of show and tells in Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I make something and I make a YouTube video and I show it off, and then I go to conferences and share it. Sometimes I do workshops where I teach people how to do this, how to do stuff like what I do. But yeah, I make typically other stuff. Nostr is notes and other stuff transmitted over relays. I'm mostly in the other stuff camp. I do a lot of finding ways to post. One of my favorite projects that I've made on Nostr is called Magic Web Store, which is where you spin up a store in a browser, and when you add products, they're all Nostr events. And when someone orders a product from you, their order is a Nostr event that comes to you in a DM. Their payment method is usually like a Zap, something on Lightning, and it's great. Then it makes it so that you can spin up a store in like 30 seconds and start selling products.
Wait, sorry. For the Nostr noob, you're going to need to expand a little bit on that. What do you mean by a Nostr event? Yeah. Well, what is a Nostr?
Sure.
In this context, what is a Nostr event? Could it be like, oh, I'm going to sell a T-shirt?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've sold T-shirts on Nostr. Well, not a T-shirt. I've sold pizza on Nostr.
Okay.
So let's talk a little about what Nostr is. Nostr is a response to social media censorship, whereas Bitcoin's a response to like monetary censorship. And the person who created Nostr decided that he was going to make it really simple for anyone to create a server, which we call relays in Nostr, where people can create posts. We call them events. Okay. Like you can tweets are an example of an event, or a calendar entry would be an example of an event. Anything that you might share on social media is a Nostr event. You create it and upload it to not just one server, but a set of them. You pick a set of servers that you want to upload them to, or relays. Okay. And it makes it so that if one of them deplatforms you, it's no big deal, because you got 7 others, and you can just drop them, create a new one, and update your profile to say, these are my new relays. When you follow someone on Nostr, you're supposed to find their list of relays and then listen to them on all of those. And it makes it so that, if one of them goes down, it's no big deal. Whereas that's unlike something like Twitter. If Twitter cancels you, you lose everything. You're done for on Twitter. You just have to restart with a new account or on some other social media platform. But the nice thing about Nostr is that it doesn't only support social media stuff. They have these things called kind numbers, and if you create a piece of text and give it a different kind number than what people are showing on social media, it won't show up in anyone's social media accounts, but it will be stored on these servers. So we call those other stuff. Like there's the notes, which are events, and then there's other stuff. And I make stuff in that category.
Why do you make stuff in that category? Because you don't want to show. Yeah, why do you make stuff in that category?
The social media stuff is, I think, there's enough people working on that. I just find the other stuff more interesting.
Okay. And what is it? Is it going to be like? Is it just like a greenfields type thing where you can? You give me something more tangible to understand what other stuff means in this case.
But let's do some more examples. So I gave the example of creating a store, where the store is an event, the items in the store are an event, and the people and the purchases are events.
Yes.
And those all go into your DMs.
Okay.
Something else.
So all DMs. Okay. All right.
Huh?
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah, direct messages,
Yes.
which on Nostr are end-to-end encrypted, unlike most platforms. We did design that well. But some other stuff that you can do on Nostr. I don't know. I'm mostly focused on the stuff that I do.
Okay. All right. Okay. So wherever you see some sort of inspiration, you try to carve it out. And...
coin joins. That's one.
Oh, you can do coin joins on Nostr.
Yeah, because when you do a coin join, there's a series of steps to make a coin join happen. You have to find a group of people who you want to do a coin join with.
Right.
You have to all contribute inputs to a transaction, which are like Bitcoin transactions have inputs, which are the addresses you're sending from, and outputs, which are the addresses you're sending to.
Yes.
So everyone who wants to participate in a coin join has to contribute money to it, and then contribute an address where they want to receive money. So that's a step. And then after that, you have to post Bitcoin signatures where you sign this big transaction that has hundreds of people in it. And yeah, you can use Nostr for all of that. So you can use Nostr as like a bulletin board where you post that you're looking for people to do a coin join with. When you find a bunch of people, then you all post your inputs, you all post your outputs, and you all post your signatures, and then you broadcast a transaction. So I made software that does that recently. That's another example of other stuff. Because you don't want that all to show up in your social media timeline.
Right.
But it doesn't have to. Like the social media clients just display tweets and things.
Right.
They don't display all the other stuff that's happening on relays.
That's why you call it other stuff. So other stuff sounds to be like probably a large majority of the potential usage of the network. Okay, so this is quite interesting because I know that a couple of the coin join, the mixers have been taken out. Was it Wasabi and another? Well, Wasabi voluntarily. Samurai got arrested. Wasabi voluntarily stepped.
They freaked
closed.
out.
They freaked out. Yeah. So. Would this be because assuming that Nostr is supposed to be robust against the state, and you were to move the coin joins onto Nostr, how would this would now align the state? The state would now put Nostr
in its crosshairs.
In its crosshairs, yes. Do you think Nostr would be robust against this?
I do think they would.
Okay.
And I'll tell you some of the reasons why I think so is because on Nostr, when you are the relays are run in many different jurisdictions. So the United States might try to shut down Nostr relays in the United States, but good luck shutting down the ones in Jamaica and Russia and China.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to do that. Another factor is that, at least in the United States, although they have not been respecting the Constitution a whole lot, for some reason they do seem to listen to Supreme Court justices. When the Supreme Court justice says you're not allowed to do that, the federal government seems to listen, at least very often. And I think that if they did take down a Nostr relay and said you're not allowed to host messages, I think you'd have a very good First Amendment grounds for saying you're not allowed to shut down someone for merely having a website where people can post messages.
Right.
Like that's not a legal thing to just shut that down. So I think they'd have a chance even in the United States and other countries that have at least some modicum of respect for freedom of speech. You'd actually be able to win in court and have it. If they went after Nostr relays, I think Nostr relays could win and say, yeah, we're still allowed to do this.
Yeah, being born and raised in South Africa, where the government is just complete trash and it's just corrupt as all hell. I always listen to Americans and Europeans and how they have so much faith in their governments and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, all right, that's kind of cute. No, I just
faith is a little bit the wrong word. At least I think it is, because it's more surprise. I notice the government do all sorts of stupid, dumb stuff, and then suddenly it goes before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's like, you're not allowed to do that, Mr. Government. And then the government listens for some reason.
Well, maybe that's in America, but like in places like South Africa, the court has no sway over, for example, a very, very corrupt ex-president, that type of thing. So it's.
So does it count as faith in the system, or is it? I'm just surprised by it. I'm just like,
oh, okay, I see.
Why do they care so much what these 9 guys say happens?
Right.
But they do. They listen to them. So I'm gonna keep leveraging that as long as I can.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. Yeah. Like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like the government controls the IP address, right? And if they don't like you, they just cut your IP address. And if they don't like a Noster relay's IP address, they're just going to cut that address. And if they don't like, for example, the NSA and the CIA, excuse me, the NSA and CIA webs, they've blocked Hong Kong. If you go to nsa.gov or cia.gov here, it's blocked. And so as a result, like if I run a Noster relay here in Hong Kong, your government can just block the relay, and then that's it. Americans will need to do what China does by getting, proxies in order to access the network. Sure, a little bit of technical knowledge, you can do that. But then you can say, okay, Great Wall of China is just Great Firewall of China is a totally legit thing because you've got proxies that can jump up. But then now you start playing an arms race game, because you'll find that if you start escaping the Great Firewall of China, what happens is they got like these little software things which incrementally slow your connection via this process, and eventually becomes absolutely unusable. So, I mean, there are ways the state will eventually get to Noster relays, right? It's through this recreating what the Great Firewall of China, and I believe even Europe has already made great inroads into recreating a similar sort of scenario as the Great Firewall of China. Is that the future of the internet? Because that's not what I want. It's not what I'm looking for. I'm not sure that Noster can be robust against that.
Okay. Well, I'm not as familiar with the technologies of fighting internet censorship as some of the people that here in China are.
Yeah.
I would love to acquire their expertise on the matter, and then build stuff in advance that they can't stop.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like the United States is at the level, at least where I live, where they're as powerful of a censorship force as the Chinese government is. And yet, even if they were, people get around Chinese censorship too.
Oh no, but that's what I'm saying. A little bit of technical knowledge, and now it becomes normal that the internet has proxies everywhere. You see what I mean? So everybody uses proxies to go do stuff on the internet. Now proxies become a permanent experience of your internet. Do you see what I mean? A user experience, and which you could say is relatively similar to the way Noster works, because in that case you always have to find a relay in order to get to somebody's data. And in this situation, likened it in this situation, you always have to find a proxy to get to somebody's data, or to somebody else's relay, and then get to somebody's data. You see what I mean? So it just complicates things more.
I remember when I was in high school, trying to access video game websites when I was in high school, like in my high school, and they were all blocked. And very early on, I learned that you could go to proxies and access your stuff that way.
Yeah.
So I think they've always been at least for me, they've always been a part of my internet experience.
Okay.
At some point, like I got out of high school and I stopped needing them for a while, and now I'm needing them more again. But they still work. You can still get whatever you want on the internet.
Yeah.
Despite censorship and firewalls and stuff.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. What about the scenario where relays, Noster relays, start to relay with each other? Do you see what I mean? So they start routing information, all these Noster events with each other. Do they already do that kind of thing?
Some do. One of the early tools that a friend of Noster built for the network was this program you can download where you subscribe to all events on one relay and then broadcast them to another relay.
Oh, okay.
Because, Noster has
mirroring the events, basically.
Yeah. And so if people are just doing that on their own, I don't know if anyone's still doing it.
That would be a flooding. That would just be a straight flooding, right? Not necessarily routing or forwarding. Well, I mean, not routing. You see what I mean? Routing would be like, okay, I'm looking for somebody. These specific events I know must go to this direction, and then again. So flooding. Flooding is very crude.
I once worked with this thing called a hypercore, which is a distributed hash table thing, where it's supposedly there's a network of nodes that have data, and if you want data that's alphabetized in the range, G, you start looking for it at A, and A says, well, I don't have it, but I know it's, try B. like go forward along this path toward where I know it's got to be on this direction.
Yeah.
And eventually you get to the G section, and the node who has all the G content gives you whatever you're looking for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like a sort of distributed hash table type thing.
Yeah, that's what it's called, distributed hash tables.
Yeah.
So I used that and developed something on the Keat framework for a while. And one thing I found is that it's a lot slower than using Nostr.
Yeah.
Because in Nostr,
DHTs are quite slow.
you specify, when you give someone some, like, you give them, if you want someone to find your content, you give them like a public key and a relay where it's located. And they connect to that relay and request that event or that profile information or whatever, and then they find it there. And it's a lot faster because you know exactly where you're going. Whereas on this DHT stuff, you don't know where you're going, so you start at the beginning, and then he forwards your request and forwards your request and forwards your request, and eventually you get it. But it takes longer because all of that stuff has, overhead. It adds to the speed, adds to the slowness or latency of querying information.
Yeah. Well, there's a benefit in that, in the sense that, for example, if a state were to come along, you don't have a specific throat to choke. That IP address that makes things much quicker and faster and smoother, in a wartime situation is a great throat to choke. Do you see what I mean?
Sure.
So in peace times, it's nice and efficient and fast, but it's not going to work so well during times of conflict.
I think it does. I suspect it will work in times of conflict, because if you give out a Nostr, your pub key and a relay that you're connected to, and someone finds it doesn't work, like they've choke pointed that, you're going to give them a different one. You're going to say, oh, well, I'm also on this relay. And then they're going to say, okay, but once they find one thing that you're connected to, your profile on that relay says all the other ones you're connected to. Mm-hmm. So they only have to find you once, and then they get the rest, your information from everywhere else. And it's really fast because I don't have to search for it every time. I know exactly where you're at and where I can find your messages. So good luck. It might be easy to censor one Nostr relay, but I don't think it's easy to censor 10. And I think good luck if they're going to try.
Yeah, no, I think it is actually easy to censor 10. China definitely does that sort of stuff. Like, China's the bar on censorship and what a state is capable of doing with censoring on the internet, and I guarantee you it'd be very easy to, like, for example, is Nostr in China? No, no, I don't think so. No.
Well, I did notice whenever at this event, people would say, "How can I contact you on social media?" And I would give them my Twitter, my Telegram, and my Nostr.
That was Gareth, right? Oh yeah, keep going.
I gave everybody who asked, I would tell them 3 options. I'd say, you can contact me on Twitter, Telegram, or Nostr. Not a single person knew what Nostr was.
Yes.
So, or at least no one asked for that. Like, I offered them to them, and they didn't ask. They requested my Telegram typically.
Yeah.
So I don't. That's first I've heard that Nostr's not in China. It seems like it is, because in my Nostr feed I see a lot of Chinese posts.
I mean, my main source of information is G sovereignty. We were walking at the conference together. Uh-huh. He's more into Nostr than I am, and he was mentioning like the state of Nostr in China is dismal. The people that you see might not necessarily be in China. They might be in the US or
yeah. There are other people who speak Chinese outside of China. That's true.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, what other areas should we go into that sort of tickle you pink with regard to technology?
So we talked about BitVM. We talked about Nostr. We haven't talked about 2 things: Hedgehog and Bitpack are 2 things that I think are really cool.
Well, okay. Let's go into Hedgehog. What the hell is Hedgehog?
Hedgehog is me fixing the Lightning Network.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember seeing that name. That's your project, right?
Mm-hmm. It's one of my projects.
So what specifically are you fixing?
The first problem I mentioned with Lightning is that the receiver has to be online in order to co-sign everything.
So this is an async type scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
How does that work? Did you specify this? Is it your idea?
Yeah, it is.
How did you design it? How did you come up with this?
How did I come up with it? Actually, I came up with it in a conversation with Waxwing, or Adam Gibson, who's the maker of Join Market, which is one popular coin join software. Yeah. He's had an idea for a long time to do something called Pathcoin, which is I feel like every time I start this sentence, I have to stop and tell you about something else. Do you know what an open dime is?
Yes, I know what an open dime is. It's a hardware sort of dongle that you can program, and you load up with Satoshi.
It looks like a USB stick, and it kind of operates like a USB stick.
Yes.
But you put some Bitcoin on it, and you give it to someone, and then they give it to the next guy, and they give it to the next guy.
Yeah. So it becomes a unit of currency essentially. But then once you unload it, it's done. You have to. I think you have to pop a capacitor or something. I forgot. It's a one-way thing.
You press a button on the device, it changes the hardware, like completes a circuit or something.
Yes.
It erases one part of the memory, and the only thing left on there is the private key.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can't use it for anything after.
And then once you extract the private key, you're done.
Yeah. If you give it to someone else and they check it, they'll see it's empty, and then so Adam Gibson really likes open dimes, and he wants to make a software version of that. He wants to make it so that I can take some Bitcoin, instead of putting it on a piece of hardware, I put it on a piece of text. And I can give that piece of text to you, and you can give it to the next guy, and they can give it to the next guy. And anyone can check that the Bitcoin's still in that piece of text.
That's hash time locks.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, this is the
HTLCs?
Yes. Isn't this the concept of HTLCs?
Yes, it is the concept of HTL, or at least you can do. So Hedgehog is an attempt to do this with HTLCs.
But doesn't Lightning already implement HTLCs?
It does implement HTLCs, but a problem with Lightning is that you have to be online to receive, and with an open dime you don't. Like you can just. He wants to be able to email a piece of text to someone, and they've got money in their inbox.
So in essence, the text that you're actually receiving is the hash time lock contract. HTLC.
It contains the money, and you don't need to be online. He wants to be where you don't have to co-sign anything.
That's kind of fun. That's a nice little idea. How does that?
Well, so he came up with a way to do it, or at least first he outlined the idea. It's like, I want this. I want to be able to email a piece of text to people, and they can check that there's money in it, and then extract it if they want it. And then, so he went about thinking of how to implement it, and he figured out how to do it in a two-party context.
Okay.
If you have CTV, the OP-CTV is one of the Covenant opcodes.
Yeah.
So often, when I hear you need CTV for this, in my mind it translates to you need pre-signed transactions for this. Because most of the stuff you can do with CTV, you can do with pre-signed transactions. You just have the two parties co-sign a bunch of stuff, and then they can do whatever it is they were going to use CTV for. So I looked into his paper on it, and I was like, I think I can do this on Bitcoin today. So I started writing an implementation. I ran into a problem with my implementation, and I contacted him to ask him about it. And while we were talking, I came up with the idea for Hedgehog, which now exists, and I've implemented it, and it works. But it allows you to do Pathcoin in the two-party context, where you can have party A send a piece of text to party B. Party B does not have to be online, but when they do get online, they paste this piece of text into their wallet, and they see there's money on there, and then they're happy, and then they can do the same thing, but you can do that back and forth forever. It's just as fast as the Lightning Network, because you're just exchanging pieces of data off-chain, but the nice thing is that the recipient does not have to co-sign anything at the time of the transfer. So it makes it better than Lightning, in my opinion.
Okay, so now I assume that you're able to unlock this text or crack it open, and in a similar way that Open Dime works, you reveal the private key.
Well, it's plain text. It's not encrypted or anything. So you send them. Well, I guess you could encrypt it. You send them a piece of text, and they paste it into their wallet, and it's got an HTLC in there that they can, if they want to receive that money, then they co-sign it at the time that they paste it in, and the nice thing is that they didn't have to be online when you sent it. So the reason why that's important is because in Lightning, when you send a payment, your wallet says, like, let's suppose that you and I have a channel together. I've got 100% of the money, and I decide I want to pay you half of it. In Lightning, I propose, there's a 4-stage process. Three-stage process. In the first stage, I propose making an update. Then I send it to you. I wait for you to get online. And when you get online, you have to do something called a revocation. You say, okay, I revoke the state where you had you revoke the state where I had 100%. And now we're in the new state where you have 50 and I have 50.
We both agreed to it.
Right. So in Hedgehog, I reverse that, where instead of having you, the recipient, revoke, the sender revokes the old state.
Right.
And it makes sense to do that because the sender is always the one who's losing the money. The recipient's always the one gaining it. It's perfectly safe to assume they'll be happy with that. Like, you don't have to wait for them to revoke it. I have to revoke the state where I had more money and adopt the state where I have less. So that's what I do in Hedgehog. And when you send somebody money, you send them, along with the HTLC, you send them the revocation key for the previous state. And by doing that, they don't have to be online. Just whenever they do get online, they can paste it in and see that they've received money. But it's great. Then I can go offline after I've sent you the thing and have confidence that the payment is settled. So it's great.
That's fascinating. That's interesting.
And that's Hedgehog.
And
check it out. It's on my GitHub. Talking to your audience.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. No, I'm just thinking of scenarios like, for example, like money laundering type scenarios whereby the person who is incentivized to lower their money. I can't think of it. I have to understand, read your stuff, and then take a few days to think about it before I'll be able to come up with something at the moment. Interesting. So Hedgehog is a solution to the online nature. But sometimes when you solve one particular problem, other problems also naturally get solved. Does Hedgehog also
sometimes
solve some of the other problems of Lightning?
Not the other ones that I talked about, but there are some other minor things.
So you've got the whole inbound liquidity problem.
It has the same inbound liquidity problem. It has the same privacy problem as the regular Lightning Network. Okay. One of the things that actually maybe it doesn't.
Why not?
Because Lightning built into the Lightning Network is the networking part, as the name implies.
That's the onion routing type stuff.
The onion routing type stuff, and the having a device that's online and listening for inbound information and saying where you can reach me. Hedgehog doesn't do any of that stuff. Yes. And that's a lot of where your privacy gets leaked, is in running this service that you have to expose a port and then tell people where they can reach you. Yes. In Hedgehog, there's a piece of text you need to send somebody, and you can use any medium to do that. You can send it to them on Telegram, on Nostr, on Twitter, in an email or whatever, but it removes the network portion of the Lightning Network, which is a lot of where the privacy gets leaked. So that's nice.
No, that removes the other point, but how does that remove the inbound liquidity?
It doesn't. The inbound liquidity is still there.
So you've removed a lot of the metadata. You've removed the centralized the actors that need to keep a service out online, but you still got the inbound liquidity issue.
You still do have that. And if you want to, if I want to send you money and I have a channel with you, it's great. If I want to send money to you and I don't have a channel with you, the only way that I've figured out how to do that is to bring back in the centralized intermediaries, the voltage type stuff, where you I will send voltage a payment conditionally on them, sending you money whenever you get online next. And that works, or at least in my mind it works. I haven't implemented it, but it brings back in a dependency on choke points that can be shut down if you don't have a direct channel with someone.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, we've still got a long way to go on Lightning, but I've solved one of its biggest problems, and one of its other problems too, or at least I think I have.
Do you see a way of potentially utilizing Nostr to forward, utilizing Nostr as the way of routing Lightning transactions?
Or Hedgehog transactions?
Yeah, Hedgehog transactions, yeah.
You certainly can. Anything where you can send somebody a piece of text, you can use to send them a Hedgehog payment, because it's just a piece of text. So yes, there's no buts, it's just a yes. You could use it for that. Here's a but. I don't want to build in any I don't want to build in a default method. I just want to give you a piece of text and say, send this to your recipient.
Right.
You can do that over Nostr if you want. You can do whatever.
Then it's up to the the programmer who's going to use this to build it into their specific media, the communication channels. Like it could be like an SMS or.
I hope to not even do that. My hope is that developers just say, I don't care how you get the message to your recipient. He just needs to get it somehow. Yeah. You could etch it onto a Frisbee and throw it to him for all I care. That would be cool if that was a Bitcoin transaction.
Yeah, I think that's the right direction to go in, yeah.
Then, because I think it was a mistake for the Lightning Network to build in its own networking protocol and then expose a lot of metadata on those grounds. Yeah. Just leave that up to the user. They'll figure out how to get the money to the recipient.
Yeah. And also it was rather amateurish, the networking stuff.
Well, we're not. I don't think the Lightning people were experts at. I'm not one to judge them, but judging by the fact of how poorly it works, guys. I'm kidding. I shouldn't. It works great. I shouldn't comment on that. It's better than I could do.
Oh well. Well, one thing we forgot, I haven't factored into this, is the noise of the birds.
Oh, the audience will appreciate it.
Oh, I hope so. Oh, we should throw stones at these bloody birds. Bugger off.
Do you want to walk again?
No, it's cool. No, it's going to be. The sun is out at the moment, and I think we're quite lucky with the seat.
They're just doing a podcast.
Oh yeah, like a bird world podcast. Okay, there's also so hedgehog is an interesting concept. Now I will look into that.
Great.
I like that idea. Then you had one last thing, which was BitPack. Yeah. Is it also a Bitcoin related project?
Naturally, most of what I do is.
Okay.
And this one's also Nostr related. Have you ever heard? No, I'm not going to start out that way. I wanted to make a multi-sig coordination tool that emulates of the experience of voting on what to do with money. So I talked earlier about how I was so mad that Congress has these morons who are in Congress get to vote on what to do with our money.
Yep.
Well, you never hate something so much that you don't want to do the same thing. So I decided to do the same thing on Bitcoin. And I made this coordination tool where you can take people's identities from Nostr. So like, let's say that you
randomly?
Whoever you want. Let me just keep going. You pick people's identities from Nostr, you plug them into an interface, it'll pull in their profile, and it'll say, you're going to make a BitPack with these 10 people. And the nice thing about Nostr public keys is that they are also valid Bitcoin public keys. So you can use them in a multi-sig Bitcoin address, and the people involved can just sign with their Nostr private key to co-sign Bitcoin transactions. So what I do is I take however many people you picked off Nostr to be in your BitPack, it alphabetizes their Nostr public keys and then creates a Bitcoin address out of them that's just a multi-sig of those people. And you pick the threshold of saying, if we're going to spend money, 6 out of 10 people have to do this, or whatever. Yeah. So it creates a Bitcoin address that does this, and then it creates an interface where you've got like a treasury, which is your Bitcoin address. Yeah. Starts out with nothing in it. Yeah. And it has these things called proposals, where you can vote on what to do with any money that goes into that address. And votes are just they're just partially signed Bitcoin transactions, and if you vote yes, you're just signing it, and you're sharing your signature with everybody. Yeah. Okay. And if you vote no, you're just saying, I'm not going to sign this. Okay. But then you can it gives you an interface where you're like, here's what I want to send X amount of dollars or X amount of Bitcoin to this address. Here's why, and let's vote. And then you just have everyone vote yes or no on whether they want to do that.
Give me the camera.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll sort of do that.
Have I been shaking it?
Yeah, no, because it's like, you're just looking at the top of your head over there. But it doesn't matter. Keep going. Yeah.
So the other thing you can do with it is you can create statements.
Okay.
So the nice thing about Nostr is that it brings a lot of the features that Bitcoin brought to money. It brings them to social media. So I have you also be able to vote on pieces of text where you say like, I want this to be our mission statement. And then you have the same threshold, 6 out of 10 or whatever you picked, has to vote yes and saying, I endorse this mission statement, and then it becomes an official statement of your group. Okay. So this allows you to do, vote on what to do with your money, vote on what statements you want to make, and that's BitPack. You just have a group of people who you do that with.
Okay, like PAC, right?
PAC,
like, yeah. Okay. I was thinking of some sort of compression algorithm or something.
Yeah, no, it's more about.
Yeah,
actually,
it's more
it's publicly auditable cooperatives is what it stands for.
Okay. Interesting. Now tell me, how's life in Austin?
Well, I was there for Bitcoin plus, but
Well, you said you live there now, right?
I used to live there.
Oh, you used to live, but where do you live now?
In Airbnbs in various countries that I fly to.
Ah, I see. So you're a real bit nomad.
Something like that. I prefer homeless.
Really?
Yeah, I prefer the term homeless.
Really? Why would you say that?
Well, because I don't have a home would be the main thing. I think nomad is like a fancy term Bitcoiners adopted because they found out homes cost a lot of money. Yeah. They became homeless, but they're like, I don't want to be homeless. I'm going to be nomad. It's the same thing. With more traveling, I guess.
Yeah. But okay, so are you enjoying the new lifestyle of just traveling around, or do you not miss having a home? Or?
I suddenly miss having a home. I've been enjoying it for the last since September of last year. I've been doing it.
Okay.
And this month I was like, you know what? I feel like being done. So I want to go back to probably Austin.
Yes. Now, why do you choose Austin?
Well, I got a bunch of friends there.
Okay.
Most of my friends are in Austin, but I've also got a pack of them in Brazil.
Okay.
So
well, that's an interesting one. Why would you have friends in Brazil? Do you have some sort of a?
I went because the reason I have a bunch of friends in Austin is because I helped start Pleb Lab there.
Okay.
And I made a lot of friends along the way. Lucas Faria from Lightning Labs lives in Brazil, and he wanted to start a Pleb Lab type thing in Brazil. So he asked me to come help him do it. It's called Casa 21 down there. And I helped him do it, and I made a bunch of friends along the way. So now I've got friends in Brazil and friends in Austin.
I see. Yeah. No, I'm dead keen on coming out to Brazil. I mean, sorry, Austin. Yeah. Because you guys have got a great jiu-jitsu scene over there. Probably one of the best in the world.
Sweet.
Like, yeah, fantastic. Also, good comedy scene.
We do have a good comedy scene.
Holy shit, great comedy scene. Like a lot of the comedians have moved away from like New York or San Francisco area, Los Angeles area. They've all moved to Austin, like after the COVID period.
Yeah. Well, because Austin, you were still free. You could have public events, which are really critical to the income of open mic comedians.
Could you believe that?
Yeah. I did an open mic in Austin, Texas.
A comedy skit. Yeah, how was that? Did you go to one of those? I think it's something called Kill Tony.
No, I didn't go to that. I wasn't on Kill Tony. They have
into that sort of stuff.
I go to open mics sometimes. I have not been to Kill Tony.
Okay.
But I went to one and I decided to do a set, so I wrote down a bunch of jokes and then I got up and told them. Nobody laughed, so I guess it wasn't very funny. But I did it. It was on my bucket list to do stand-up comedy, and now I've done it.
So have you crossed that off your list as something not to further pursue?
No, I hope to one day do it again, but I haven't come up with. I stopped writing down jokes, so I guess it's not. I was like into it for a little while. I was like, I'm going to do a really funny thing, and then I wasn't good at it. Oh, okay. But I also didn't expect to be. Like the first time you do something, you're usually not that great at it. Yeah. The nice thing was I didn't fumble. I got through my whole set. I did all my stuff. Did the full 3 minutes.
Right. So it was well rehearsed. You did you did your mirror time.
So
and a flawless execution. Just nothing caused the laugh.
It didn't bring the humor. So I do. Yeah, someday I hope to do it again and be like, all right, I'm going to do better jokes this time and better delivery or whatever you need to do. But I did it the first time, and maybe that time is the hardest.
Yeah. I think just getting up there on stage, that's terrifying. I've done a lot of amateur dramatics and that sort of stuff, but comedy? Fuck no, I don't know if I could do that. That's something quite weird. Quite weird for me. Well, what else is good about Austin?
I like the weather. So the kind of weather we're having right now is throughout the year in Austin. It's like this. Really?
But it's pretty humid now.
It is pretty humid.
Yeah. It's also humid in Austin.
It is humid in Austin.
Oh my God, that's awful.
So, some people don't like it. I don't mind it. I'm perfectly fine with humidity.
Okay.
So I would go out for like a 3-hour walk in this and have.
That's fantastic. That's interesting. No, I don't know. I need the aircon on.
Okay.
Hong Kong loves that.
So yeah, it depends. So I gave that as a benefit, but you might find it as something you don't like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It does get. It's less. It's not as humid in the winter. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's quite dry.
But I leave in the winter because I want to find somewhere more humid.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, so I would like go to Brazil.
Okay. Ah, okay. And you know, Fiat Jeff, the author of Nostra, he's out in Brazil too.
He is. Yeah, I didn't meet him. I tried to. I was like,
did
hey,
you?
I was in Sao Paulo, and he didn't tell me where he is. I said, I would like to meet you, and he said, that's what my nemesis would say. So, I guess maybe if I'm your nemesis, Fiat Jeff, I would like to be your friend. So.
Yeah. No, I have a sworn promise that when I go out to Brazil, I'm having beers with a fella. So if not, I'll find you.
That'd be sweet. If you find him, let me know so that I can tag along. 'Cause I would like to meet him.
Yeah. How have you been enjoying Hong Kong? So is this the first time that you've been in HongOng?
In all of Asia, in fact.
Is that so?
I've never been to Asia before.
Okay.
So it's much more European than I expected, actually.
Oh yeah. What were your expectations?
Communism. I was expecting straight up communism everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And it looks more like a open market kind of place. I see advertisements for things everywhere. They don't look government things. Like Panasonic and Sony and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
So just like, oh, look, this looks like a European city that's in China.
Yeah, I would go as far as to say you're actually more free in China than you are in the US.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would say that. But yeah, I mean, the only caveat is just don't mobilize a public party to run against the Communist Party. If you do that, you're just fine.
So you have as much freedom as you want as long as you don't use it.
Yeah. I mean, no, you can run your businesses, you can do all that sort of stuff. You're not going to be like harassed like what happened in America. It's kind of what happened during COVID times was an exception, but generally you got a lot of freedom out here in China. Hong Kong is especially so, because every communist regime needs to have a Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the lubricant that makes communism work. It's the thing that facilitates all the trade into and out and exploiting the system. So that's why.
Here's the thing that surprised me. You have to aim it slightly upward because I'm falling out. Yeah, you're good now. Here's the thing that surprised me. When I got here and I was on, I think it was a bus or a train. No, it was the plane. They gave the announcement in English first, and then they gave it in Chinese. Yeah. And they were like, "Welcome to Hong Kong." But when they did it in Chinese, they said, "Welcome to Hong Kong."
Hong Kong. Hong Kong.
It's pronounced different.
Yeah, no. Hong Kong and Hong Kong. Hong Kong came from the Cantonese Hong Kong. Hong Kong means fragrant harbor in Cantonese.
Oh, well, I experienced that. The harbor does smell nice. I was walking on a bridge over the harbor, and I took a ferry over the harbor, and it smelled nice. Yeah,
you did that. Yeah. And what other parts have you been to here in Hong Kong? Have you just... Is it a central area? You've gone over to...
I've been to Central. I've been to Kowloon, which is where we currently are. Yes. That's where my Airbnb is.
Yes.
And I think I've been to whatever the pier is where the Bitcoin conference was.
Okay. That was at Kai Tak. That was are you familiar with the Kowloon walled city?
No.
Oh my God. Okay.
I don't know anything about this place.
Okay, so going back about was it 30? No, in the 80s or so, there was a small little area which was essentially belonged to China at the time. Hong Kong was under British rule at the time, but there was a small little enclave which was Chinese, and that area became a place where a lot of criminals and people who wanted to escape the system, they went there. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they built up this place. So it was like this tiny. It apparently had the most amount of population per square foot or square meter than anywhere else in the world. People, it was like 8 stories of just people on top of people on top of people. And before it was built up, it had this great big wall around it, and the wall was disassembled and used to create the Kai Tak airport. That's where the cruise terminal is. That's where the Bitcoin conference was. Mm-hmm. So our cruise terminal, our conference, was built on the foundation rocks of the wall that surrounded this Chinese enclave. And I think in the 1998, 1999, or maybe the whole place was torn down.
Because that's when Hong Kong became Chinese again.
Yeah, 97, I think it was. It went back to China, and then there's a sort of a handover period that I think of 2025, no, 35 or something like that, whereby then China will take full control over it.
Oh wow! So does British still have a hand in this?
No. I mean, the Brits fucked themselves up in World War II. They fought the Germans and handed over all their gold and their entire, the colonial empire. Yeah. They became weaklings. Now they're a shadow.
Well, what happens in 2035 then? You said.
No, then Hong Kong is fully handed over to the control of China and
who's handing it over?
Well, no, it's already handed over. You can see that in the 2019 protests. So Hong Kong people generally have a very colonialist sort of mindset where they're like, okay, yes, yeah, we just follow. And they didn't really look at the contract, man. They didn't really look at the contract, and they were like, well, we don't have a say in our future.
Many such cases.
Yeah. Well, it's like
you got to read the terms and conditions.
Exactly. Yeah, and then people started to protest, and we're like, fuck, we're not happy with what's happening now. We want our freedom until a certain period of time, and as a result, Beijing sort of cracked down on this. They're like, no, just shut the fuck up. I'm not going to allow you to do what you want to do. And
here we are.
Yeah. So as a result, Hong Kong's been lacerating a lot of talent, a lot of money. It's on the downward trend. But things have cycles. Like markets have higher highs and lower lows. And is this a higher high? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Hong Kong. But I know that Hong Kong's always competing with Shanghai, and Hong Kong's now competing with Singapore, since Lee Kuan Yew lifted Singapore up from its bootstraps, turned it into this international phenomenal city. You absolutely have to go to Singapore. You absolutely have to check out what the Singaporeans have done with their space. It's beautiful to see what they've done.
Yeah.
And as a result, everyone was like, I'm not having this shit. And just like Bitcoin offers you an escape valve, well, Singapore was that, and people were just like, I'm fucking off to Singapore. In fact, Carrie Lam, who was the chief executive of Hong Kong during the protests, the US system, the SWIFT, she was kicked off the SWIFT system, so she can't use credit cards, right?
Yeah.
So she's paid in cash. She doesn't have a bank account because she's on the US embargo, some sort of like
OFAC list.
Yeah, she's on that list.
Yeah.
She's on that list. So she was paid in cash essentially, so I hear. And also it's difficult for her to travel around, right?
Carrie Lam is on the lam.
Yeah.
That's an expression that means you're running from the law.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I didn't know that. That sounds very Texan.
Well, it might be. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from.
Anyway, so she wanted to travel, and she said to Singapore, like, do you mind if I come over to travel there? Of course, Singapore is more than happy to allow that because most of the intellectual power from that was in Hong Kong has escaped Hong Kong and gone to Singapore. So like, okay, yeah, come on, welcome. You've done a great job to help uplift our country.
I was invited to go to Singapore.
Yeah.
I had all expenses paid.
Oh, why didn't you say yes?
I did, and then I realized I had a scheduling conflict.
Oh no!
So I said no. I undid my yes, and then I just did like a remote thing. I remotely presented in Singapore at an event.
Oh, that's a Zoom. Oh, I see. Oh, you did a remote presentation.
You want me to hold it again? I can maybe.
Oh no, it's okay. No, I thought I'd tilt it upwards, but it's actually. I think the positioning is quite good.
It's hard to watch two at once.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to hold my hand steady like that. No, that's really good. No, you should definitely check out. Also, another place you should see is Japan. Definitely go to Japan. If you get an opportunity to go to Japan, take it.
Okay.
Tokyo is something to behold.
Well, lately people have been flying me all over the place. So hey, Japan, if you guys want me, I'm happy to come and teach you about BitVM or whatever it is you want to learn about.
So what? So you've managed to get yourself onto the conferencing circuit. How does it work getting onto the Bitcoin conferencing circuit?
It was mostly the BitVM thing because I was early on in that, and that became the thing in Bitcoin for the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. So everyone either wanted me or Robin to fly everywhere and tell people about it. But I guess because I got some popularity through that, People have also been paying attention to my other things that I've been making, so they're like, can you also tell us about that thing or this thing or whatever?
Okay. So then how is it that people like, what's that? Those people like, what's it, Shinobi? How did he get on it? He doesn't make anything, right?
I don't. But he works for the company that put it on, so that would probably help. I don't know. I didn't ask him.
Oh, so all of these conferences are funded by this Bitcoin magazine?
They funded this one, and they're funding the one in Nashville. I don't know how many conferences they have their hands in, but they did these two.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't know what to say about Bitcoin magazine.
Hey, you guys, you're at a bunch of scammers and your sponsors. I'm going to name some names. Next time, don't have Citria, don't have QED, BitLayer, BVM, or Satoshi VM. Those guys are all scammers. So don't give them positions to speak, and don't have them be sponsors of your conference.
I'm absolutely now I have to dig into this. Why are they scammers?
They're all, I know them all from the BitVM community because they've all written blog posts about how they're going to launch sidechains on BitVM.
Oh yeah.
And then raise like millions of dollars on these promises.
Okay. But they don't have the skills, or
not only do they not have that, but most of them, not Citria actually, Citria isn't doing this. Most of them have created a token on Ethereum that they're selling people and saying this is back. Like if you buy this, you can peg out, you can withdraw your Bitcoin, and because it's backed by BitVM. Which is nonsense, because BitVM, except for my stuff, BitVM doesn't even work yet. And my stuff can't do that. It doesn't do bridging. So they're scammers. They're selling people something they don't have.
Oh, man.
So yeah, watch out for that, and don't invite them back, Bitcoin Magazine. Shameful.
Good, yeah, you tell it like it is. Yeah. Oh, what other things can we cover?
Actually, they're watching.
Yeah, well, yeah. What other things can we cover, or should we just wrap it up and then we can fly drones? Anything you else want to sort of...
I mean, there was one thing that I wish I'd gone over earlier, but we missed the opportunity, so now it's going to be out of context. I thought you would be interested in particular in something I made called Celebrity Escrow.
Why would I be interested in celebrities or escrows? Why?
Because you asked me to tell you about interesting stuff.
Oh, God, yes. Well, then tell me about that.
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned BitPack, which you did not see very...
Is this like a celebrity kidnapping service?
Yes.
Fantastic. Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, no.
It's borrowing celebrities' influence to make Bitcoin more expressive.
Oh, yeah.
So earlier I told you about BitPack, where you select a bunch of people and put them into a multi-sig together.
Okay.
In Celebrity Escrow, you do the same thing, but with only 3 people. A buyer of something, a seller of something, and a celebrity who they pick off Nostr to be a third party.
Okay.
Now, they don't tell him that they did this. They just grab his Nostr pub key and put it into a contract. And if I buy something from you, let's say it's, I don't know, a reindeer. If I buy a reindeer from you and you deliver it to me, I'm good. I'm just going to co-sign with you, 2 out of 3 multi-sig. You get the money that we put into this address.
All right.
If there's a dispute, though, if I say he didn't give me the reindeer, I can go to the celebrity and I can say, hey, Mr. Celebrity, you didn't know it, but we used you as the third key in this escrow situation.
Jesus Christ, that would be annoying. Okay, if you're the celebrity.
You get money out of it, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the celebrity gets money out of it, and so you say, you set up the contract in advance, but it's something like, you get 5% or 10% or whatever you guys agreed on if you will adjudicate this dispute. Mm-hmm. So then the celebrity can be like, sure, yeah, I'll do that for free money. So he just has to click, give the money to the one guy or give it to the other guy, give it to the buyer or the seller, and then the celebrity gets whatever percent you decided on.
Well, so then whoever makes the most noisiest case, sort of.
Yeah, but if you pick a celebrity who you don't trust, because that's the thing, the parties have to agree on who to use as the trusted third party. So if someone's like, well, he didn't decide correctly, then just don't use that celebrity again. Use someone else. Pick someone more trustworthy.
Yeah, all right.
But it's kind of neat because because the celebrity exists as a possible judge. Typically, you don't want to go to court. Normally, you're going to be like, I'm just going to be honest.
Out of court, right?
And plus, you make all of your money instead of having to give 10% of it to this other guy.
Right.
So it's like you have the judge to not use the judge, but it's cool that you can just pick a judge off Nostr and have him be in your quorum.
Yeah. It reminds me of a scenario that. Are you familiar with Robin Hanson?
The singer from...
No. He's a professor at some university, some fancy university. He's a really intelligent guy. I actually interviewed him. And during the interview, he told me about his voucher system. Now, this is a fantastic system. Like, imagine this. You keep the all the laws you keep exactly the same. And what you're going to do is you're going to draw a circle around how you actually find the problems.
Okay.
So you introduce bounty hunters, and you introduce the concept of a voucher. So if you wanted to join this particular community, you would need to have a voucher, VOUCHER, to vouch for your presence. And then you also need to pay that voucher.
You need to tilt it up again.
You also need to pay. Look at that. You see that? It's sort of like.
Yeah, it does adjust, but it adjusted wrong.
Oh,
so.
okay. Maybe that's because I twiddle. Anyway, so in order to join this community, you have to pay an insurance to this voucher per month or whatever the agreement rate is. And should you go wrong, should you run afoul of the system, there are bounty hunters that'll be tracking you and gathering your evidence, and then they'll catch you and then take you to court. And then when you go to court, the voucher will pay for you. And then if you keep violating the rules that the voucher has said, then he's going to increase the insurance rate, yeah. Or he could like mandate that, for example, that he can read your emails, or like he can get more and more controlling over the environment around you, for you to exist within this community.
Until you finally get fed up and go somewhere else.
Yeah, if you're that sort of person that keeps causing trouble. That would be kind of interesting to see.
That sounds great.
In for example, maybe that could be food for thought for one of your ideas.
I'd love to make. Yeah. Hey, Mr. UCH guy or Robin Hansen, I might steal that and.
No, he's published it. He's the gift that keeps on giving. He's a wellspring of ideas. This fella. You should look up. He's what's it? He's got a website called Combating Ignorance, or I forgot what it is. Yeah, it's a very famous one. A lot of people know it and follow it.
Well, now since I have gained now from this conversation a new idea for a Bitcoin project, not product, it might be a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Cool, and we can maybe. All right. So.
There's no closing thoughts or anything, or just...
closing thoughts.
No, I don't have any. So just turn it off. See you guys. Thank you so much for the podcast.
Okay, so we just.